Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel. Welcome to the Jeet Kune Dialogues, episode number 282. As you're logging in, if you'd be kind enough to say where you're logging in from, hit the like button and feel free to continue doing so throughout the dialogue. If you're catching the simulcast over on the YouTube, please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell as well. But of course, the best thing you can do is to share this video and spread the word about the Jeet Kune Dialogues. Okay, so two of my dialogue partners today are regular viewers and listeners because they always make the time. The other guy is busy teaching on Fridays, so he never makes the live program. All right. um, okay, so Terry, now we got serious echo.
Right, okay.
Spacey.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds better, but doesn't look better because now I'm looking at the ceiling, I think. Right. Okay. Well, so while Terry works on that, let me right. So like I was saying, so one guy stays up late on Friday nights. That's Terry Valler because he's in the UK. The other guy, it's 3 p.m. usually when we go, like, because he's on the West Coast, so we never have to worry about him, right? Okay, Terry, hang on one second. I gotta move that. Okay, but we can't. All right. Okay, how's that now? Right.
Oh.
But somebody, wait, hold on. I gotta move somebody out to. Okay. All right. Do y'all like that view, or do you prefer that one? What do you think? That or this?
I think that.
This
Well,
last
people don't
one,
like
right?
being that close to me.
So that one?
I think, but it's up to you. It's your program, sir.
See, because then I can't. You can't really tell who's talking, right?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
after
sir.
that little camera switch just happened, I've completely lost audio. Sorry to tell you.
Oh,
I
you
cannot
did?
hear anything. Once that switch happened, something got cut
Okay.
off.
What about now? Now
I
we're
can
back
leave
to
and come
this.
back in, Dwight, if you don't mind giving me a thumbs up if that's a good idea.
Let me see if I can fix you on my end. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. Jump out and come back in. And we'll just talk about you behind your back while you're gone. So I'll take him out.
there we go.
Yeah. Okay. So now the three of us get to say whatever it is that we want about him. All right. So Terry, what time? Let me make sure. It's 8 o'clock where you are, right?
Just a bit earlier, it's 7 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, time.
Right.
The clocks went back Saturday.
Oh, already?
Yeah.
Oh,
Ah, yeah. Well, see, that's probably because they do it the right way. Because you do it like on October 21st or something. America, for some reason, doesn't do it with the solstice or the equinox or whatever. They pick like a couple of weeks later, right?
Brilliant.
All right, Kurt, we can't see you. Well, all right. Well, while he works on that, let me just say welcome to you guys. Welcome back, actually, because you've both been on here before. And for those of you who are tuning in, the idea for this episode actually comes from the elusive Mr. Cornwell, because of a post that he put up. So I thought what I would do is pepper you good gentlemen with a few questions that that I thought of, since the premise of the episode is to discuss, let's call it methods to improve the camaraderie in Jeet Kune, because you guys have been members of the I Love Jeet Kune page for a while. So you know that there's a lot of consternation going on there. Okay. All right. Mr. Black Belt Shaolin, you're good?
Yeah. If you can
hear-
see me, I can hear you. We're
Okay.
good.
All right. Well, no. So I was just making everybody aware that the idea for this four-man discussion comes from your post, right? So Kurt talked about improving the camaraderie among Jeet Kune Do people, and Mark Black said, "Hey, there's a podcast in there somewhere," and I was like, "Okay, nowhere else to go. We'll go here." Right? So here's the thing. I want to do this. What is your understanding of the origin of this dispute that continues to this day, even 50 years after Bruce Lee's passing? What's your understanding of the origin of it?
Me personally, or all of us?
All of you, right? So we'll just go around. We'll just go around the table, and everybody tell me what your understanding of it is. And there's a reason behind this.
I mean, I guess I'll start if you don't. That's actually a really good question. I don't like a lot of these things. This is a really good question because, like, so many family feuds, they go on so long that generation after generation, you can't even remember who started it or why. And that might kind of be true from my perspective. I know I've heard a lot of stories from my Sifu about this kind of stuff happening during his time coming up, and same generation as you, obviously. And so being around these kinds of debates, and as a younger student, I remember when Rick would talk about like all people saying, "Oh, you're one of those JKD concepts guys," or whatever, and this sort of derogatory stint to it. I always wonder why he would tell us those stories as if they were contemporary stories, because it didn't seem relevant to anything that we were experiencing as students. Maybe we were insulated in his bubble, as it were, or whatever. But I always felt like, I don't know, that's kind of your generation's thing. We didn't inherit that. That's not happening anymore. That's kind of an old school debate or dilemma. When did it start? If I had to,
but then you came on Facebook and discovered that it still exists.
Yeah, not only does it still exist, but it seems to be like perpetuating exponentially, like picking up steam over the last maybe 1 to 3 years. By the way, all arguments have been picking up steam over the last 1 to 3 years, haven't they? You know what I mean? And so it seems like it went from a thing where it doesn't exist to, well, I guess in some corners of the world it does, to, I guess for some people they're still going to have this, to now, what are we doing here? We've decided to inherit these sort of whatever negative traits or things from it's like, it'd be like my grandparents and my parents working hard for me to not pick up something that they had that they weren't proud of, and me then as an adult going out of my way to going, I'm going to adopt it anyways. That's kind of been the vibe.
Yeah. All right, Terry.
I guess from magazines originally, for like combat, martial illustrated, black belt, kind of read stuff through that.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously some books out there, but generally just magazines and stuff. You've got articles from stuff. It's how I kind of generally come into it. Yeah. And then you kind of get talking to people, especially when the internet come about, and then it's a bit more frequent. And then it kind of dies off. I think you kind of go through the whole phase of pick and choosing sides and going, this is right. And then you kind of drop it and you're like, I like both. And then a new generation of people come in and they go through that process. So it continually sticks around because there's a new generation of people going through that process of what ones you can do, what ones not, and just how I kind of look at it at the moment.
Okay. Russell?
I don't know the origin. I mean, it didn't bother me. So I never really got into that argument. But I do know the argument's still around. I get labeled a concept guy. I don't really care, right? To me, Jeet Kune Do is Jeet Kune Do. I mean, and that's not to say something else isn't, but I think when we look at both sides, you definitely notice there's more in common between the two camps, as it were, than there are differences.
Right.
Just some people like to stick to what was done at that time period. Other people like to take the principles of those things, or of Jeet Kune Do, and apply it to whatever else they dabble in. And I don't think either method is wrong, because you're still doing Jeet Kune Do. as long as it still retains, simplicity, economy of motion, and all that other stuff. But as far as the origin of this debate goes, no clue. Never cared for it. So,
Dwight, can I interject with a question real quick?
Sure.
For context for what we're talking about, and I apologize, I don't know everyone's backstory. When did everyone start with JKD? I'm curious to what degree that plays a factor.
For me, 97.
97? Okay.
I should just leave. I'm clearly the baby of the group.
Shut up.
I've said that before. I started in 2010.
Okay.
But been a Bruce Lee fan since like 90 something. Hey! You put me on here, Dwight.
Good for you.
I'll
Good
keep
for
myself
you.
out. GG's, guys. GG's.
2010.
Hey, I met you in 2016. You can't say you weren't pleased with my movement. I
I
remember
was
you.
I was
You
quite
threw
pleased.
the freaking kitchen sink at me. We did
Yep.
stick and dagger. We
Yep.
did like
Yep.
we did some trapping. We did some.
Yep.
We did a lot of stuff, and I
Yep.
was just like, got it.
I
As
was-
humble as I can be.
I was
had it.
quite impressed.
It's
Right?
almost 15 years, man. It's still a
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah.
Dwight, you're before I was born, I'm sure.
Well, I self-trained for about 10 years.
Okay.
Right. And then in 1980, I made my first pilgrimage to Seattle to pay respects on July 20th at Bruce Lee's gravesite. And then I repeated that in 81, repeated that in 82. And then in 83, had the epiphany that you can only get so far with the deceased source of Jeet Kune Do. If you're going to progress, you got to check out the living source. Everything that I had seen up to that point pointed to Dan and Sano as the living source. So in July of 83, instead of going to Seattle, I went to UC Irvine. And that's pretty much it. But I just thought of something. I had intended to determine whether or not you guys actually qualify to be on this show with me, and also whether or not anybody who is watching us qualifies to be on this show. So let me show you this shirt, and I want you to tell me what's the mistake with this shirt.
The image doesn't match the quote.
What?
So the image doesn't match the quote.
Close. Pretty close.
Boards don't.
Yeah.
Is it his right or his left hand? I don't know if your camera's flipped.
No. Listen up, Mr. Cogwheel. Right? Okay. You know what it is?
It's a
Okay.
different
Anthony
movie.
Labrador. Anthony Labrador is on it. It's a different movie.
That's what I meant by different image.
Different image,
doesn't
yeah,
match.
right.
Ah, well, you didn't say it's a different movie. The image is from
No, I
Big
didn't.
Boss.
And you're so particular about language.
Yes. The image is from Big Boss. Right?
Yes.
But the quote is from Enter the Dragon. Yes. So,
Correct.
okay. So, but since you're the baby of the group, we'll let you stay in. Okay.
Yeah. I get a free pass.
Yeah, you do.
I was the only guy in your class who could keep up with all your references, so you remember that.
Ah,
Oh.
right. That's because Glenn was quiet. Right. So, okay. So what Terry said about the magazines and what have you, that is also for me. I mean, I heard about the stuff, but then I saw it start to happen in the 90s with the very first appearance of people other than Inosano, right? And then the way that the magazines put it out there is that these people are here to save Jeet Kune Do from disappearing. That's how they worded it, and then it just took off from there. Because media, whether we want to admit it or not, are quite influential around the world. So martial art media, same kind of influence. And that's a lot of it is that where it started. And then in I want to say 1988, but I might not be right about that. But Sifu Inosano used to write a column for Inside Kung Fu called In the 20th Century. And I believe his very first submission, his very first article it might have been about Penjak Silat, right? It wasn't about Jeet Kune Do. It might have been about Penjak Silat. And so just before he stopped doing that monthly column. The editor, a guy named John Stephen Soot, he wrote something, and I don't have any of it in front of me, but it was something about how you could never get a straight answer from a Jeet Kune Do guy, right? Okay, and we all know that's true, because there was a time where JKD people famously, if somebody said, "What is Jeet Kune Do?" JKD people famously said, "It's easier for me to tell you what it isn't than what it is." That was a thing, right? So he expressed, I guess, frustration at not being able to get a straight answer from a JKD guy, about whether it can be taught or what have you. And then Sifu Dan's column went away, and it was, you could say, replaced by Ted Wong's classical JKD column. And then Ted Wong's first entry was about the straight lead, I believe, and footwork. So it was very much more in keeping with a specific JKD, something specifically identifiable with JKD. Whereas Inasano was often left field, talking about in the 20th century, and this and this and this and this. So I truly get it if somebody is confused, because if you weren't there, it's hard to you have to be able to imagine yourself in the situation and therefore understand the context. So for example, did you see, I put up a thing from a Chris Kent article the other day, and it talked about trapping and how, and I think he went from, now I forget what it, but at the very end of it, it said something like, it's not where the technique comes from, that sensitivity is the most important thing. And I noticed from some of the comments that nobody seemed to realize, oh, this was a specific statement said in a specific setting at a specific seminar. Now, if you read what's in there, it says all that. Dan Inasano is teaching a seminar, and he's moving through the group, and he's doing this and he's doing that. But when people read that, it's like, oh, well, who says that sensitivity is the most important thing? They take it completely out of context, right? So I'm babbling about that because I think to help us currently, we have to understand context, since so much of this animosity, for lack of a different expression, is based on something historical. So we got to understand the whole context of it, right? So what I want to ask you is, like, Russell, we'll start with you, Russell, because you actually alluded to it. So name a couple of things that you have identified as commonalities between the two so-called different approaches.
I mean, your Baizhang's the same, regardless. Your footwork is primarily the same. I mean, I know when we, like in Seattle, when we're kind of like going through the history of things, when we do the side steps, we'll talk about how back in the day, if I sidestep left, I'll go right foot, then left foot, so I don't expose my groin. But as time shifted and we were focused more on mobility, now it's left foot, then right, or right, then left when moving to those sides. But it's not like, as a concept guy, I'm looking at Savat or what have you and thinking, all right, I'm going to throw this round kick and I'm immediately going to jump to the side kick and I'm going to extend that arm all the way. It's like, no, what I'm looking at is, okay, I've missed my kick, and now how do I recover from it? And those things remain the same. But other things that might differentiate is the way you express it. And because it's an individual art, that expression is always going to be there. But the base is always the same. We have the footwork, we have, you know, tight economic structure, we have a lead limb emphasis.
Well, some people will argue that with you, because
Well,
so
which portion?
I'm gonna pretend to be somebody who doesn't understand this. I see a lot of Jeet Kune Do people put in their left side forward.
Oh, you know, that's fine.
Right. So what I mean is, there are people who will point out to you that within some JKD circles, there seems to be a de-emphasis on power side forward, and they have adopted more of a mainstream orthodox boxing or kickboxing approach. Do you see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah. And I don't want to say one side or the other is wrong. I know that it originally started with power side forward because one, you're more coordinated, and if you're landing, you know, 70 to 80% of your shots with your lead hand or lead leg, you might as well have that be your strongest hand and leg. And now your weaker side gets to compensate with all that distance and momentum, right? But I mean, and I posted this around Halloween, you got to train both sides.
Mhm.
Like, and I love myself a right lead. I'm a right lead guy. Most of the time that I spar or compete, I'm in right lead. But I have to be competent in left lead. Otherwise, I've just created another liability for myself, right?
Mhm.
And the thing about Jeet Kune Do is you're looking to be a well-rounded martial artist, a well-rounded practitioner, a self-sufficient practitioner. And if I am intentionally training right lead, you know, 80% of the time, I'm just creating another deficit for myself by not having my left lead be as proficient. Now, for people who do mostly left lead, you know, go back to right lead sometimes. But it's just one of those things you need to balance it out. Now, I don't have an explanation why some people may be 80% in one lead versus the other than preference. But you know, Jeet Kune Do shouldn't have biases exactly, right? I know there are certain things that we practice, like again, strong side forward, but again, if you're looking at being well-rounded, you have to train whatever you're not comfortable with in order to sharpen those tools.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Terry, what commonalities have you seen and experienced?
In terms of material or in terms of people?
Both.
Okay. So the material, to me, just how it's presented. Having both trained with those different instructors from both lines or both theories, it's no different. Whether it's been Bob Breen, whether it's been Ron Balicki, Rick Fay, Fran or Jerry Petit. We did a seminar one time in Seni with one of Ted Wong's guys. It was all the same material, just developed for the JKD or general for the JKD stuff. Anyway, it was just how it was presented. I found different material. The techniques was the same. You know.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes they try and toy with that way and that way, but the body mechanics were the same. That may be the biggest difference. Some people twisted the fist and some didn't, but that's really, I'll say, the only difference. But when we talk left and right lead, if you're sparring, it's relevant maybe, but when you're actually physically doing something for real, you're in talking range, right? You're not going to be at long range. You're going to be a close, middle range, close range, because you're verbally engaging with somebody. So left and right then doesn't exist. You just go with whatever side they throw their punch, headbutt, knee, whatever, split, whatever it is at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So left and right doesn't matter really, because you're going to be, you're already past that kickboxing range if you're talking actual fighting. If you're talking MMA or in a cage or sparring, then you start at that distance.
Yeah. Well,
If-
let me ask you, because I think, because Terry, well, all of you have trained in boxing, right? Okay. All right.
Not pure.
So here's the question. If power side forward is such a phenomenal advantage, why has that not taken off in the combat sport world?
Because there's a difference between the sport and the street.
You start from either side of the ring with cage and stuff.
No gloves in the street.
Yeah.
I see. So power side forward only makes sense, right?
I think you do probably see. I'm wondering if you see more of it in the bare knuckle. You know what I mean? Like the new bare knuckle like championship stuff.
I'm wondering
because
too.
a lot of the strategies have changed in that. You know, you notice the style of punching. There's less, you know, slingshotting haymakers and hoping you make it because you don't want to blow your hand up on their forehead. And it's the tactics have changed where, you know, as a JKD person, there's some insights to gain from that particular competition. But I mean, it's a good question. I think, you know, Terry's point is whatever's highlighting what you were saying, Dwight, which is the significance of context. You know what I mean? So if we're having what I always think of in terms of like the spectrum of violence, like a duel. Okay, so you and I decide we're gonna step outside of the bar and have a fight, and people are circling around, and we're doing, you know, and then it kicks off or whatever. You're gonna go from out of range to long range. To, you know what I mean? You're gonna go through that procession, understanding it from the longest distance into clash. But yeah, the context of understanding a lot of violence or a lot of fights or a lot of, you know, assaults, that kind of thing where you're being surprised by violence, what's closer to what we use terms like combat, I think so inappropriately, you know, that's happening danger close, that's happening in your face, or it's happening behind you. So what's my lead? I turn my back to you. You know what I mean? Like I have no lead and I'm turning the wrong way, because that's the thing you need to train for. That's where it usually happens. So I feel like in combat sports, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess I don't know why I answered. I don't have an answer, but
I mean, I had 6 MMA fights roughly, not bigger ones, just amateur stuff. But I went right lead because my right leg was strongest for my double legs. So I didn't want to switch out. So I usually jab, cross, and switch. It was easier to go with the right lead, use the strongest hand to hit the jab with, and the rear kick landed more than the cross anyway, I always found. But it also set up the single and double leg, and it set up the defenses to takedowns as well. So I always went right lead because I felt it was more appropriate for the way I went about it.
Were you typically going against an orthodox left lead fighter?
Yeah. But
did you find yourself susceptible to that lead leg kick, putting the right side forward? Like more than you might otherwise be? Yeah,
no, sometimes I use it just to catch the leg. I nicked it off Eric Paulson, but when they just catch, they kick your leg and you pick it up from the kick. So that I paid for it the next day. The leg was killing for a few days afterwards.
Sure.
But so I was aware of that because obviously I sparred like that.
Yeah.
But it just the transition from the punch into the clinch or the takedowns I found smoother because on my left side I was like a little bit jaggery, if you want. It just wasn't smooth as it was in the right.
That's fascinating. I never thought of that. That's true for me too. All of the takedown stuff, the clinch feels better going right side. I mean, I don't have any MMA fights like that. You know what I mean? But like that's true. That's interesting. Yeah.
Hey, let me digress for a second. Did anybody see that recent video that Kevin Lee put up of him and Eric Paulson?
He did a couple.
Not me.
No.
I think so. I do remember one of them, but
I think it's about 12 minutes long or something. And I think Kevin captioned it something like is this how Wing Chun should work or something? You didn't see it?
Yeah, I saw that was because that's Eric showing like applying the structures and the sensitivity exercises into MMA context. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Which he's such a joy to watch.
It's a freaking workshop in about 10 minutes a ton of material that you could go train on, and he's just fooling around. You know, it's incredible, incredible. You know, and so when you said that about when you mentioned his name, Terry, I thought about that because to me, he is one of those people who has made Jeet Kune Do invisible. And by that, I don't mean that he has obliterated the art. I mean that Eric Paulson is JKD. But you can't sit back and go, oh, well, okay, right now he's JKD. Oh, but 2 seconds ago he wasn't. Okay, now he is again, and whatever. Because that's not it. It's this completely integrated thing, which is well-roundedness. You know, and I think that some people are so limited in their outlook, in their understanding of what the JKD ideal is, that they would not be able to look at him and identify it. And that's their problem. Oh, well, I can't tag you as this specific thing. Right? And that's part of the problem of the understanding. People are looking for a specific ideal. The kick has to be this way in order for it to be a Jeet Kune Do kick.
Sure.
You see what I'm saying? Right? As opposed to, well, it's a Jeet Kune Do kick because of how you train it, because of what you're training it for, and then the context again in which you apply it. That's what makes it a Jeet Kune Do kick. Not that it looks like something Bruce Lee did on the screen. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, we used to do, Eric Paulson has a great series of like tackle defenses, right? And there's like the Jeet Sao, and there's the punch, and there's the like quick uppercut and the quick knee, and there's Puta Kapala. It's like a great series that he put together. I'm almost positive it's his, excuse me. Every single one of them is in effect an interception. You know what I mean? It's like, here's a list of variations on theme. So we've got, an intercepting punch or an intercepting kick. Great. Here's 5 versions of that punch, 5 versions of that kick, and other variations on how to intercept that, and to go, well, to me, that's why I make the joke about the sport thing. I feel like so many people will look at somebody like an Eric Paulson and go, well, yeah, but he's, like a sport guy or whatever, and it's different on the street. And then they shut down the willingness or ability to investigate any further. Sort of, I don't know if it's hiding behind or what it is, like a mental block to go, well, that context is different, so there's no value in looking into it, which to me is like a potentially grave error. And then I always think of this idea of, some people talk about like Mike Tyson. Well, he's a boxer and it's different on the street. Like, that's true. That's true. Boxing is different on the street. Do you think Mike Tyson can't street fight also?
Do you know what I mean? Like, do you think Eric Paulson
and rip your face off, and he punches like Mike Tyson? You know what I mean? And he has that head movement.
Exactly. Right.
What do you have for him now? And that's what we have with somebody like Eric Paulson, who is like, sort of, in my opinion, perfected this sort of spectrum of awareness of what martial art is, can be, should be, could be, would be, whatever, through that JKD filter, and is gifting us all of these variations on theme. And to go, well, yeah, but it's different if you're in a cage. Like, that's fine, but he's not only teaching that. Just take the information and assimilate it or not.
But even if it is in a cage, right? Even if it is in a cage, what's your opponent in the cage trying to do? Is he trying to hurt you?
Right. 100%.
What's the guy on the street trying to do?
Right.
He's trying to hurt you.
Right.
So what is this idea? Do they think that somebody like Eric Paulson is the equivalent of what, Keanu Reeves?
Yes. Right. Yeah, that would be a better like threshold, a better barrier. Yeah. Right.
I mean, so Conor McGregor, because he's a UFC champ, he can't scrap. Really? Right? Manny Pacquiao, because he's a boxing champion, if somebody moves on Manny Pacquiao in the street, he falls apart, right?
Right. Well, and I think, when we think in terms of like finger jab and hitting the groin and, all this stuff that maybe would be, outside of the rule set of combat sports, those are certainly the things we keep in our back pocket if, God forbid, you have to fight Conor McGregor in the street to defend yourself again. You know what I mean? Like, so those are the things that might be universal tools that can be productive in a personal protection scenario, because otherwise he's better at that than you are, So I think it's important to keep those distinctions aware. I often think of really, I think of this all the time in your group, Dwight, is I wonder if Bruce Lee's biggest thing isn't that he was one of the best at adapting sports for the street. Because we're all this talk about, well, JKD is not sport fighting. But it's boxing, which is a sport. It's fencing, which is a sport. It's savate, which is a sport. You know what I mean? Like, it literally is just a combination of sport fighting that he's kind of put through a filtration process and made it feel like he can do it on more of a street level, But when we're standing in front of somebody like an Eric Paulson, like a Conor McGregor, there's just a good chance they've got more time and they're better than that at that than you are. Did I ever tell you when I was working security for the Twins and somebody threw a baseball at Derek Jeter? Did I ever tell you that story?
Yeah.
So I was working in the outfield and they were having like just playing catch before the games, batting practice, that kind of stuff. There's all the guys are on the field warming up. And so the Yankees are in town. Jeter's playing catch with somebody, just working his shoulder out, and some already intoxicated fan, everybody likes to hate on Jeter, goes down right to the end, F you, Jeter, whap, whips a baseball at him. And Jeter, without even like peripheral vision, went, whoa, and caught it like that. And was like, what the hell? And ran away, like, what's wrong with this guy? And we wrapped him up and took him out through the gate, kid bounced him out, lifetime ban or whatever. But I remember telling the kid, you threw a baseball at the most famous guy in the world for catching baseballs. Right? He's known all over the world as the baseball guy.
Right.
And you threw a baseball at him. That'd be like if you went up to Mike Tyson, you're like, hey, Mike, and you punched him. Like, he's better at that than you are,
Yeah. Well, that's perfect because what was the scenario? It wasn't a game, but it was a ball coming at him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So he's supposed to fall apart because it's not the setting that he trains in and trains for.
Right. Right. And he caught it without even looking.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think that this ongoing dispute, this is a tricky question. Do you think that this ongoing dispute has affected the growth of the art?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. How so? Embellish on that for me.
Well,
in other words, where do you think JKD could be today if it weren't for this ongoing dispute?
I think it could be more popular and a lot more fun. I mean, let's be real. The dispute or disputes are just so toxic that it turns people off, right? Like, imagine trying to go into a school. And I'm not saying Jeet Kune Do schools do this, but just as a for instance, you go to a school, you know nothing about, sorry, my brother's making a lot of noise, so I threw something at him. You go to a school and you go to a Jeet Kune Do school, you know nothing about Jeet Kune Do, and they're like, oh, are you here for concepts or original Jeet Kune Do? And you're like, oh, I don't know. What's the difference?
But see, okay, Russell, I hope to God there's not a school that does that.
I hope so too, but people, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So, and then if you have someone like that and they just start, talking trash about one camp while building up the other, it's like, okay, well, that makes sense. But they don't want to join because, well, I want to hear both sides. And they go to the other side. And that's the same thing, right? And now it's like, well, who's right and who's wrong? But you're a person with absolutely zero experience and absolutely zero context who just read about two people talking trash. And you're like, well, I don't even want to join this. This is too complicated. It's too political. I'm going to go somewhere else. So you're turning people off by
Right.
just getting into these arguments that should not
but
be
is
arguments
that
to begin with.
Russ, is that hypothetical, or do you know for sure that somebody's done that?
I know
Terry,
people.
you, Kurt, anybody? People have
I
told
know
you
people
that.
who talk down about original Jeet Kune Do, and I know a few people who do the opposite with concept.
I specifically know somebody who does that.
So people go into their school, and that discussion is what comes up when somebody
Yeah.
comes in interested in joining your school.
Yeah, especially like with the person I'm thinking of who used to be local to me and isn't anymore, had a school and doesn't anymore. Maybe surprise. Where because there's the other branch of the JKD tree also in town, you know, like David and Linda Hatcher in my general area. So, you know, well-established people that are also in town. That's the foot that gentleman was putting forward, you know, just this idea of,
Wow.
which is like you're talking about, you know, people saying like only being able to answer the question of what JKD isn't, you know, which is a non-answer. It's, you know,
Right.
I personally hate that kind of response because I'm like, that's not what I asked you. And the impression I'm getting from you is you don't know what it is either, you know?
Yeah.
And I see that debate in the group a lot, you know, well, let's talk about what it isn't. Like, no, that doesn't, it's, you know, it's not eating pizza on the front porch of the house either. It's not, you know what I mean? Like there's a million different things that it's not, but we're trying to understand what it is. And to have a prospective student come in who's enthusiastic and excited and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and you know, they saw it in the movie or they read it in the book, or you know, this thing they want to do, or they want to learn to defend themselves, and they have something real going on in their life that they need a little bit of sensitivity to from a teacher and somebody who can be honest with them of whether or not they can help in that situation or not, or they want to get involved in that situation or not. And all they're getting is, well, just so you know, there's a division here and those other guys are boneheads, but we're not. Like, what are you even talking about? You know, that's how disruptive that is for that potential student to find a home. You're in effect only saying you either join our camp, our team, our gang, which is a little cultish, if in my opinion. You either decide to toe this line or you don't get access. And it's the kind of thing that not only could it prevent that student from engaging in Jeet Kune Do and helping to perpetuate this art for future generations, but it may very well turn them off to martial art as a whole. Right. I went to this school and I met this guy and he said blank, and it confirmed some concern that I had that these are going to be egotistical guys. And now they're never going to do it, which to me is like an unforgivable sin from a martial art teacher. You know, this you now turn somebody away from this practice and painted all of us with this brush.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know that happens all the time, but it definitely does happen for sure.
Wow. I can't believe that. I mean, because if you're running a school, well, Terry, you go ahead and tell if your experience of that.
Or running schools, or of
No, in your experience, has the dispute contributed to a lack of growth?
I don't think
for the art.
No, not really. I think as a unit as a whole, art, yeah, maybe. But I think the only way that would have not happened is Bruce stayed alive. I think. But generally, no, I don't think it does. I think, you know, like any other art, it's still growing. It may have taken different branches and stuff, but I don't think the arguments have pushed it down. If you're talking function, maybe the way it's taught in classes has. If you're talking actual, but then if you did a Jeet Kune class like they did in backyard in 1973, you probably get 5 people in your class. You can't just go, right, we're going to smash the hell out of each other for half an hour and then see what works. I mean, if you want 4 people in the garden, you can. Right? You can't if you've got a full-time gym. I mean, I don't. I have people that come to where I work, and we've got a little private area. We're not looking to have classes. We're looking to go, right, let's see if this track works. Let's see where, or we just spar and see what we pull off. And that's it. You know, sometimes you come with a couple. I mean, I do jiu-jitsu 4 or 5 times a week, no gi wrestling, but you know, so I get sparring there. But you know, just for the growth of the art, I don't think this concept's original or whatever is really pushed it down.
Yeah.
But
I
function, I think.
yeah. Again, I'm shocked to hear that there are people who would actually believe that that's how you introduce a prospective student to your school, by involving that person in something that they might not even be aware of, right? You should be so busy and so intent on exposing that person to what you and your school are about that you don't have time to talk about other people, because they're not here, they're not at your school to hear about other people, right? So that's so stupid.
But that assumes that your priority as a teacher is the student, as opposed to your priority as a teacher is your teacher, right? You know what I mean? Like, and you see this all the time, don't you? I mean, I've had this conversation so many times with other martial arts. You know, there's a school of thought as from teachers. I see it all the time. I want my students to look a certain way so that my teachers know I taught them well, right? You know what I mean? I want them to look the part so my teachers know I did a good job. I'm a good boy in perpetuating the thing, you know what I mean? And so they can see that in my students, which to me is very like, there's a lot of me in that perspective, you know? You're wanting your students to get you another gold star in the perspective of your teacher. You're wanting your students to know you're the true voice of, you know, Bruce Lee in his absence or whatever, as opposed to your priority being the well-being of your students, the progress of your students, their ability to access this and to be able to grow as individuals. You know, what is your loyalty to? You know what I mean? When you're like Larry Hutzel would say, it's a quote that I've seen attributed to him, of like, when you're a student, your loyalty is to your teacher, but when you're a teacher, your loyalty is to your student. You know, and not understanding that distinction starts to get real weird real quick.
Yeah. I mean, when you were talking about it earlier, I had this thought. Bruce Lee says Jeet Kune is about honestly expressing yourself. Somebody comes into your school. If you start talking about other people and the ongoing dispute in JKD, where's the honest expression in that? It isn't. So you're not really, you're not a real JKD guy if that's your approach. As I had this thought too. You're not a real JKD guy if you can't handle people coming after you on Facebook. Okay? Because if you're an instructor of scientific street fighting, not sport for the street, and you've been teaching this for decades, you get rattled by Facebook comments? I don't know. Right? So, but I am concerned because I have not yet worked out how to solve this. I mean, it happened to me today. I went over to the Sheraton, like I was telling you guys earlier. I went over to Sheraton. I'm pretty much have it confirmed for March 9th and 10th, or 8th and 9th, for Chris and Cass coming to Miami, right? And the guy, he sees my shirt. It wasn't this one, but today is an orange day, so it was another orange Bruce Lee shirt, right? And so he asked me what martial art and what have you. So proverbially, happens all the time. He knows exactly who Bruce Lee is, but he doesn't know what Jeet Kune Do is. And I have not yet, after 4 decades in this, worked out how to solve that conundrum. Why is it that Bruce Lee isn't better known, right, or as well known as being a real martial artist who had his own method, right? It's just those of us who have pursued that method that know about it, but the general public. So based on that, how do you think that fits in to the overall context of getting people into Jeet Kune Do?
Yeah, I think it's a real problem because increasingly, or rather, like fewer and fewer young people know who he is, right? So if people know who Bruce Lee is, but they don't know what JKD is, what happens when people don't know who Bruce Lee is anymore? Now there's nothing, right? Now there's no context. Now there's no frame of reference. Maybe that's better. I don't know. You know what I mean? Maybe now JKD is being taught more openly without certain baggage. I don't know, but you know, that's inevitable. I see it. The younger my students get, the fewer of them know who he is, unless they have like a mom or a dad who's really into him.
Right.
That he's, you know, not as much in the popular zeitgeist. Of course, he's a personality that's well known. He was an actor. You know, I mean, he was a Hollywood phenom. That he's a celebrity, right? So obviously, there's going to be that factor. You know, at this point, young people know The Rock as an actor and not as a wrestler. You know, that's the way this thing is going to go. But I do think the more that the JKD community prevents it from being shared with the world, and the fewer people know who he is, the more obsolete or left behind it gets. You know, I don't think, for example, I don't think JKD is the same as MMA, but being able to have some more cooperation in those environments would have done and could do a lot to put this more in the public spotlight. Not trying to attach ourselves to something that's popular, like I'm not saying Steven Seagal style, you know, but just trying to go like, you know, what relevance do we know we have? We know we have it, right? And it always has since well before my time. Right. The answers are in JKD. And so if so much of the focus and the attention is internal inside the community and not projecting outside of the community, there's no signal for people to find. And if Bruce Lee's the only signal, one, they just want to know how to do the movie stuff. And two, sooner or later, that's going to go too.
I think it was Rick Fay. I think it was Rick Fay who said it, that you should be so busy working on yourself that you don't have time, right, for the endless discussion, what have you. But so you said something about MMA. Didn't the UFC study World Wrestling Federation and the NFL in order to restructure and repackage themselves? Do you know about that?
I know the UFC got their fighters to go, or got Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to go to a conference with them years ago to how to promote themselves, how to sell tickets, and I met someone across here who did a wrestling for a friend of mine for a show. Spoke to him, and obviously Vince was dealing with Dana back in the day. Yeah, showing how to promote. You know, because at one stage you had, you know, there'd be a fight between Ken Shamrock and someone else, and then you had Ortiz that walk in the ring, cage trying to promote next fight. So it went that way for a little while until the fans kind of rejected it. But it was definitely looked at and tried for a little while because it was, and that's obviously when Instagram and Facebook were doing their conferences in Las Vegas to try and get people to sell their profile. They gain interest. They sell tickets. Conor McGregor being probably the prime example of that, right?
Right. How many of you have seen the video of Dana White talking about the Bruce Lee quote that is on the wall in his office?
What's the quote?
No. God damn it. No. I'm sorry. That's not directed at you guys. No, that's not directed.
You guys don't get any of my references.
Right? It's not. No. It sounds like it's directed at you. It's directed at me because I did an episode of the broadcast about it and nobody remembers it. Right? That's my problem. That's my fault. Because if I do something that's about one of the most well-known people in the world, then more people should have seen it. You see, so I'm sorry if it sounded like I wasn't yelling at you guys. I was actually yelling at myself because, again, I have not yet conquered, right, the algorithmic essence, right, of putting, getting your YouTube stuff or your Facebook stuff in front of everybody because Dana White is tagged in it, or Dana White is a hashtag, or whatever the hell it is that you do to do that type of thing.
I could give you a tip. Just name every episode. Here's what Bruce Lee got wrong. Done. Right? Comments. You're good. Here's why MMA doesn't work.
Yeah. I mean, but hey, look, there is. There's definitely a technique to it. Remember, what's his name? The Chinese guy who is a big time marketer.
Oh yeah,
Dan Lok.
Yes.
Right. Remember when he had that series? That guy clocked hundreds of thousands of views. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
or like my master sensei, Master Kent.
Yeah.
Stupid.
Certified black belt.
He's never done. Has he ever done an episode on JKD?
Yeah, I think so.
He did.
Yeah, I think so.
Pretty sure.
I'm sure.
Yeah. The only one I remember is with the Filipino girl and Arnice thing. That's the only one I remember. Right. That's for Glenn Russell. That's for Glenn. Okay.
That's exactly what someone would say if it weren't for Glenn.
So, okay. What about, do you know anything specifically about people's efforts to bridge this gap? I mean, mine is obvious.
Other than us,
I'll talk to anybody, right? I'll talk to anybody from any lineage, right? There are a bunch of people that I have reached out to and invited, who some of them didn't even deign to give me the time of day, because I can't say this for sure, but there is a particular individual I suspect. The main reason why, because he's gone on everybody else's podcast, right, and talks about Bruce Lee, but I suspect the reason why he won't come on mine is because I'm an Inosano guy, and if I'm right about that, it's really pissy of him, and really low class,
Well, it's funny that it's so often the same guys who only train JKD a certain way against other guys that are only training JKD the same way. You know what I mean? So it works really, rightly. Everything has to be the exact correct thing against somebody who's doing the exact same thing. Yeah. As opposed to really getting high level practitioners of all the other sports and arts. And, can you still do your thing then? And that's true in the debate or the conversation.
You want to know if you can do your thing? Let Eric Paulson grab you.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Now,
okay. If you think that you are shit, right? That you got some shit, let Eric Paulson grab you.
Right.
That's my suggestion.
And to your point of do you really, have you really put in all of this time, and you're easily offended or shaken or whatever on Facebook? If you can't engage in at least civil conversation, if not maybe debate with somebody like yourself about the topics, then you're only in an echo chamber, right? You're only having that conversation with people that are either giving you a platform to say your thing, or people that agree with you because they're on the same team. To your question of people that have, whether transcend above or built a bridge between the sides, that kind of thing. I feel like I'm really lucky where, my seafood, Rick Fay, Terry's referencing earlier as well. I mean, is a guy who he would reference that those debates had taken place, but never in a way where we're supposed to participate in. Quite on the contrary, every time to go, hey, if you hear this, on borderline, you're not allowed to do this. You know what I mean? Like, like just right on that edge of be better than that. He would always say, like, if you feel yourself about to get into the debate, go train, go pick up a stick and swing it, go shadow box, like use that energy for something else and use that time to train and not to just be training your jaw, rise above that, be better. Don't worry about what other people are doing. There's value in everybody's approach. Make space at the table and go from there, right? And then especially in recent years, talking about like finding joy in your training being one of the most significant things for you to be able to perpetuate this as part of your lifestyle, right? You're really enjoying it. And then in more recent years for me, it's been probably, I don't know, maybe 6 years now since I met Mark Stewart. And Guru Mark has been such a great resource of somebody who has spent time on both sides of that aisle, right? Who is a direct student of Ted Wong, but also spent a lot of time with Guru Asana, with Eric Paulson, and David Leach, and all these kinds of guys, people from that community. Was a student of Lukai, and so it has the perspective from both sides. And every time I learn from him, and even more so every time I have a meal with him, right, where you're just kind of hanging out and really being real with each other, that's somebody who's going like, it's all kind of nonsense, it's not the point, and people miss it. And he's very diplomatic and kind about it. I've never seen him rub anybody's nose in it. Same with Rick. But I think both of them do a great job of going, look, I've seen enough to know that this is a little almost pointless, and if you've only seen one thing, you might fight a lot for that to be the main thing because it's your thing, it's all you have. But the more you get exposed to what's out there, the much easier it is to go like, oh, okay, it's no big deal, right? And in my experience, my life, they've been two really amazing kind of torchbearers for that, really phenomenal signal.
What about the fact that what's again, I think I don't remember if it was last time you and I spoke, Kurt, but it's that quote about for evil to exist or grow or whatever, then good men just have to be silent. I mean, I just butchered the quote, right? But my point is, if let's, okay, let me do it this way. So let's say that we take on the mantle of Jeet Kune concepts guides, which I don't, right? But let's say we do. If we say nothing, if we want to rise above it all, and so people are saying this and people are saying that and whatever, and we're like, you know what, I'm above that all. So we never say anything. What happens? Anything good, anything bad, what happens? And that's not rhetorical. I want each of you to give me your idea about what happens.
This is where we need Andy. It's a good question.
That freaking guy. I wish I could write like him. My God.
And a guy who's like has just bit his tongue for so long, and finally, because it's a good point. I mean, if what we see in your group acts as like a really big beacon to what JKD is, and you have a really big vocal group and a silent minority that is then kind of falls by the wayside because of it, that it is a problem. I just think it's about how we present ourselves, and what I mean. Can you do it in a way that's responsible, that's authentic, and that's supporting the cause as opposed to just backbiting and name calling and that kind of stuff,
Well, see, because my thing is, if you're representing JKD, right, then that means you're representing the art of somebody who is highly intelligent. Then you should represent it in as highly intelligent a way as you can. And if feedback from people is that you're not so intelligent, then go study some more and then come back and try it again. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay. But anyhow, Terry, what's your take on that?
I don't know. It's a difficult question to answer, really. Just how you present it again. How you when you put it out there, be respectful for everyone, right? rather than try and knock someone else down to put your stuff up. You know, I think that's just the way you present it, I would say. You can't tit for tat, can't you? Because you're going to get nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't do that, then what do? You can only present it in a respectful way. If people are going to be louder, people are going to listen to what they want, aren't they?
Yeah.
So other than there's no point tit for tatting, and I don't know many either sides of any lineage, and I speak to quite a lot for people from Ted Wong lineage about JKD, from Inner from James Lee's. There's only a couple of them, but that I speak to. And you could say that there's definitely more commonalities than there is negatives. It's just some people in the forums, typical internet, like to pick apart, highlight the differences rather than highlight the. But when you actually talk to them, go clean.
What if I was to do this for a week, right? Somebody puts something up, and I message them and I go, "No, I'm taking this down. I want a video representation of it instead. I want a video of you, right, doing what it is that you're talking about." What if I was to do that for a week?
I think it felt like it did it last time. No one's going to do videos, are they? It's easy to
radio silence.
While you're eating Doritos, you can type, can't you? Can't eat Doritos and watch TV while you're trying to do.
Russell, should people be quiet or should people speak up?
People definitely shouldn't be quiet, coming from a guy who's very quiet. Just because, again, if only one side is speaking, right, you don't get to hear the other perspective. And just like Kurt and Terry were saying, when you present your perspective, it should still be respectful. Should still be tactful, right? You can give your opinion without, stepping on others, right? But I don't know necessarily how often you should necessarily speak up, because I'm that old school mentality, right? Like those who know don't speak. But again, if I'm not speaking, then no one gets to hear that side. And if someone presents a side that I haven't considered, this is my own thing, which is why I like healthy debate, right? It's because if you give me something I haven't considered before and it makes me think, oh, you know what?
Yeah,
that might have some value to it.
Yes.
Now, I don't take that and say, what I've been doing that was wrong. I'm just going to go by this now. Well, no, I'm going to take that idea and I want to put some work in it. Okay. I can't dismiss something until I put the work in it. Otherwise, it's like, oh, I saw Mayweather landing that really snappy jab. I'm gonna really work my jab, and I miss it like 3 times in a row. I'm like, you know what? The jab is shit. Sorry. So I'm never gonna jab again, right?
Right.
I'm only gonna use that cross, maybe that lead hook. Well, no, you didn't put the work in. You didn't put the hours of repetitions. You didn't put the thousands of repetitions into to decide whether or not it's useful. So this is where I like people like Mark Stewart, and I know we were just talking about Mark Stewart, but he'll pose ideas out there without, putting others down. Him, who else? There was someone else recently. I can't think of it, or of him. But there were a few people who say things. I'm like, you know what? Let me take that to the lab. Let me work on that. Mm-hmm. And again, going back to Mark Stewart, his YouTube channel, I'm sure some of you have seen it. That's a lot of stuff in there, especially for Jeet Kune Do. And like he has a whole 25-minute video on just working the straight lead in different ways, where you're still working on one technique, just applying it differently. And that's one of those things like, oh, maybe that was the missing piece in my straight lead. I haven't worked it counter offensively. I haven't worked it by taking the initiative. It's just been, one thing on its own. But what was the question again? See, I'll just go off.
Is it better to speak up or stay quiet?
Oh, no, you got to speak up, but do it nicely. I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm so sorry.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I try to me, I try to follow a basic principle, and I don't always apply it. But my thing is, like, you can say anything you want about me, you can say anything that you want to me, but it's when you go after Inosano, and it's about Inosano is trying to rewrite history. Inosano went after the money. He did what he did because he went after the money. Then that type of stuff, I'm not going to delete it. I'm not going to ban you or whatever. That I'm going to engage in conversation back and forth with you because that matters to me. I can defend myself, but he's not on Facebook to defend himself. He doesn't need me to defend him, but I consider that to be not my duty, but that's something that I'll address. And that's it. Anything else, anybody else, I don't really care. So that's how I got drawn into the dispute, because Inosano and what he has done, or the perception of what he has done, is a major aspect of the ongoing dispute, right? What I hate is that people, because I'm involved in it, people might have this idea that I actually care to argue. I don't. There is no original and concepts. There's just Jeet Kune, and that's it. That's my stance. Everything else, is bogus nonsense as far as I'm concerned. But it's when you start pointing fingers at a particular individual and going, well, he was wrong about this and he was wrong about that and whatever. Now hold your horses. I'm going to jump in. But I have no interest in perpetuating a dispute, right? In prolonging it or what have you. I've said to people, I have it somewhere, where at the end of one of the JKD nucleus meetings or whatever, right, it was decided that there is no separation. That's it. As far as I'm concerned, okay, well then it should end right there, because there were representatives of every branch in that organization. So if ultimately that organization declares there's no separation, there's no difference, then why carry on the dispute? The official representative body made a declaration. We should be done with it from there. So, Russell, you have your group, right? Mm-hmm. Terry, you have a training group more so than being like an instructor or what have you, right?
A group of two of us.
Okay, right. And then Kurt, you have your school as well. So what how do you go about encouraging your students to I just said there is one Jeet Kune, but that doesn't mean that there isn't diversity. Oh shit, I can't believe I used that word. God damn it.
You got a lot of soul searching after this episode, Dwight.
Because, God, okay.
I don't even know who you are anymore.
So is it necessary for you in your setting, your daily setting, your training setting, to counsel your students about the different approaches that there might be in JKD? You know what? This is a stupid question. Forget I asked it. No, answer it, but forget that I asked it. Okay. It's a stupid question.
Do you mean like, as teachers, do we like teach that
Well,
there
see,
is a
okay.
distinction?
So here's the thing, right?
Diversity?
So here's the thing. Old school JKD. You ever seen Cass Magda's YouTube interviews?
Mhm.
All right. You might not remember this, but he talks about class starting at 5, finishing at 10, and then you go to eat, and then you close the restaurant, right? Okay. So now it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and you're out in the car park, and Inosano's pulling sticks out of his bag, out of the car, and what have you, and you're doing stuff in the car park, and it's 1 o'clock in the morning. That is where so many of us got our insights, got our deeper understanding, right, of the art versus on the training floor. It's the discussion of the art. So for quite a long period, I wanted to be Dan Inosano. So everything that he did, I wanted to do. Russell is somebody who's trained with me, so he knows that I can talk it. I could spend sometimes more time on the training floor talking about it than giving you what you're supposed to train. But that is because it's a carryover. It's a tradition. The talk JKD is a tradition, and it was so valuable. So much is learned. So that's kind of what I'm asking. That's part of what I'm asking you. In your groups, at your schools, is there occasion to have these discussions about JKD? Are your students interested in the behind the scenes stuff? Or is it just like they're just there to sweat and smile and have a good time and hang out and go home?
I have a mixture. Like some of my younger guys, they're just there to train and kick butt and then join the next competition and show everyone what they've been working on. And then I have other people, those who are a little older, who just I can't tell you how many times, my class in California, my adult class starts at 5:30. It's supposed to end at 6:30. The building closes at 8. I can't tell you how many times we've left the building at 8:30.
Right.
I mean, that's just what we did. And one, we might just continue training because we're just having such a good time. But two, we'll start to talk about other stuff because I know there's a fair amount of people, mostly because I have teenagers more than adults, that don't seem that interested in the philosophy. They just want to hit pads and hit each other and then go out and test themselves. But so in class I don't talk about it too often, but as soon as class ends, we start to talk about philosophy, different training methods, and all this and that, right? And that's where you get to see people's eyes light up more, right? It's like, oh, I haven't considered that. Like I said, during the or in the Jeet Kune Do group, when people share new ideas, I love that. And if I can make someone think, not necessarily think the same as I do, but just so that they can think, and you get to see those gears turning, you're like, okay, I'm doing my job. I'm not telling them how to think, but I am showing them that thinking is part of the art, right? It's not one size fits all. Well, forget that phrase because that's another conversation for another time. But it's good to, light that fire, and wherever that fire takes them, I don't care, as long as they're starting to make those connections for themselves and they understand the value of knowing how they relate to what they're doing, as opposed to just going through the motions.
Terry, y'all talk all the time, don't you?
Well, from previous experience, obviously, I haven't taught for a number of years now. Work being crazy as it was, it is. No, I mean, we started originally with just teaching a Jumfang or JKD class, and then myself and a few of the students started getting into the MMA stuff, and it was a good way of testing what we did. But as for, I like both ways. I like doing. I have really been interested in learning from the TED lineage. I spend luckily last year and hopefully next year I'll spend some time with Fran Petit again, because I really enjoy the way that Jerry and Fran Petit's organisation show it and go, okay, that's really good. It works for me. I like it. I like the way that Bob does it and Ron Balicki and stuff, and it's like, yeah. So with all the other groups, it's just for everyone I've ever dealt with, it's just this is a different way of looking at it. If it works, use it. If it doesn't, but there's no like politics and stuff of it. It's not like, oh no, you can't do that. You have to do this. It's just, try it, use it. At the end of the day, once you're sparring, not really worry about the politics, are you? Worry about being punched in the face.
Yeah.
Ultimately, what's more important? Worry about that, or worry about trying to work out how not to get hit.
Well, okay. So now, do people develop a better appreciation for that aspect? Right. There is no politics when you're concerned about getting punched in the face. Will they only learn that in that actual physical setting, or can they learn that through a philosophical discussion?
It has to be physical. You can't talk about dodging it. You won't dodge it, or you just get hit. But if you want to talk about philosophy, maybe the philosophy of JKD, then that's your training base, isn't it? It's like that's how you approach your training, rather than learning 15 forms, 17 rules.
So you're saying then sometimes instead of talking to people, you just got to bash them in the face, huh?
Yeah, I think it tends to happen a lot.
Right?
Some people
Well, so now how does that translate into Facebook discussions?
It doesn't get involved, do you? You just talk about the positives. I've been lucky to talk to Bob Landers from Bill Singh, other people, and it's not, we don't get that's wrong. We talk about the commonalities. Bruce and obviously most of my I'm with them, but they never like, oh well, we can't talk because of that. So we talk about the stuff inside the JKD.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, it's the same. Okay. Or they might. I've seen people do stuff differently to what I was doing. I was like, I quite like that. I'll take that and work on it.
Okay. Do you think that we should? Well, not necessarily we. Do you think there should be a continuation of, in these Facebook discussions, trying to correct what Chris Kent might call a misperception? So in other words, if somebody comes out and says something about, well, Kali this and Kali that, and so then the discussion is, well, Kali has nothing to do with JKD because this and this. But you have an experience of how Kali affected your JKD. Should you engage, or should you just, you know what, let me just stay out of that or whatever? Or should you do a video that explains it?
Maybe you should just do a video and calmly and politely and just express, my view is this, or this is why I would do that, maybe. But the trouble is people's emotions get involved, don't they? And you're like, you get frustrated, and that's where most of that probably comes from. People write stuff or say stuff, and you think, I really wish I didn't say that now. But
there's an edit. You can click edit or delete, can't you?
It maybe straight away, but not 10, 15 minutes later, because it's out there. So I've done it a few times. I said stuff out tongue in cheek, and then I went, probably shouldn't have said that, to be fair.
All right, so Kurt, recommendations then for going forward from here. I'm gonna put some pressure on you, right? Okay. So I want recommendations for all of us as representatives of Jeet Kune Do, right? How we should approach dealing with these discussions. And then I want recommend what you think I should do in my position as moderator on the I Love Jeet Kune Do page.
Their question was, do you guys tell your students stories? And mine is, how do we solve the problem?
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I thought you had answered that.
I was gonna say, no.
I'm not trying. I'm not
I was really looking forward to Kurt's response here.
Good luck, Kurt.
Well, but see, the reason why how do we solve this problem? I'm gonna start to finish up the conversation with you, and that is because the conversation was born out of
Sure, no, I understand
wishes,
that. Yeah.
your wishes to, and I mean, and like I said, you know, Mark Black said there's a podcast, and I'm like, let's do it.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. No, I understand. I mean, where do we go from here? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Your ideas on your idea on where we can go from here. Yeah.
I always wish I took notes during conversations like this. So, because there's a lot of good stuff that's already been said that would be useful to reference and kind of tie things up, you know, put a bow on it. But I think one of the biggest things you touched on, which is there's one thing to have a discussion or a debate or to make a point or to publicly disagree with or even kind of put on blast what another, it's a stupid thing to do regardless, but another art does, or just what you think should happen. It's entirely different to attack an individual, right? Mm-hmm. So this thing of attacking Dan Inosanto or attacking Ted Wong or, you know, anybody attacking me or you, that's so far over the line. You know, it's against basic common courtesy. And where I grew up, you're going to have to attest to that. You know what I mean? Like you know, you don't say things about people like that. Right. You can give an opinion about a topic or whatever, you know what I mean? The greater state of the thing. But yeah, like trying to go against somebody, and it doesn't help your cause, in my opinion, as an observer. Just for me, if I see somebody, for example, and so much of their persona online is about being negative towards or negating Dan Inosanto, all I'm saying is, so you're standing on the shoulders of a giant trying to get people to notice how tall you are. You know, like your whole thing is you're using his fame and notoriety and popularity and influence, and you're piggybacking off of that. It's the joke I made of, like, if you want your videos to be more successful, just title each one what Bruce Lee got wrong, because the algorithm is going to find that, you know, that's just the nature of the thing. And so I don't see that as being very, this is a term I've gotten from you, Dwight, being very intellectually honest. I don't see it being very true to oneself. And I see it as a bit of a kind of a hacky move, if I'm honest. You know, you're utilizing somebody else's notoriety and you're being controversial so that you can support your own notoriety. And you might hide behind the fact of, well, I'm just trying to make a point, you know. Right. Well, that's not fair. You know, that's dishonest. That's, you're being, you know, I learned that a long time ago from a friend in the JKD Collie world. I was wearing a shirt that I knew was controversial and whatever. And she was like, you know, kind of called me out on it. You have these lessons in life and where you go like, wait a minute, why am I doing this? Am I trying to send a message, or am I just kind of being a shit? Am I just being controversial for the sake of it? And if you, hopefully martial art gives you those lessons, and these interactions and these relationships give you those lessons. And some people seem to miss that. So my hope is that people are genuinely more, it's a big hope, maybe a dream, but that people are genuinely more honest with themselves and more authentic with what it is they're trying to do. I don't think JKD needs any one of us to be its torchbearer. I don't think it needs any one of us to be the one that makes sure that future generations know that blah, 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 blah. That to me is very self-serving and has very little to do with the art. That's just the optics of it. And so the more we're trying to put our own individual foot forward both in the group and just in the world, and saying this is how it's meant to be. Again, that's a lot of me and I statements, and that has very little to do with the students. And so focusing our attention and prioritizing and developing that loyalty towards our students, our community, right? How can you relate JKD to your literal community, right? Where I live, the neighborhood around me. How can I utilize Jeet Kune Do to help this community, both figuratively and literally on the mat, right? How can I communicate this art and this philosophy and this mindset and this filter and this whatever to the people here in a way that benefits them by meeting them where they are and helping to push them forward together, right?
Mhm.
Do I have that ability? And if I don't, then what I have is a bunch of feelings and opinions. That's great. We all have those, right? But we do a lot of, well, you should be doing this and you should be doing that, right? And just, you know, the expression is like you're shooting all over the other person thinking that your should doesn't stink. And sooner or later you're just shooting yourself, you know, like it's just, it's kind of nonsensical. It's not getting us, it's not moving the needle. Where the group is concerned, I'll offer an observation that I've really come to in the last few weeks. I was really sick over the last 10 days, which is why I was posting a lot in the group, because I was not doing anything else. And when I'm sick, I'm like overly philosophical and overly verbose. So as I am right now. So anyways, the one thing I've observed is I'll put in a question like, you know, what arts have you done other than JKD, if any, or whatever? And then the feedback back will be a bunch of people giving me suggestions of what I should do, right? You know, well, you got to get into grappling, you got to do this, or go see this teacher, or go do that. You know, I'll put a video up that shows a technique, and then half of the comments are people going, "That's a G tech," just like labeling what the technique is and offering no real feedback or insights. And so I see a lot of the interactions to me feel very ego driven. Going, you didn't even read what I posted.
Right.
You kind of scanned for the cliff notes and then offered your phenomenal insights into what I'm supposed to do. What I was asking is, you know, like something completely different, trying to stoke a conversation, trying to get, I like dialogue better than debate personally. And so trying to create good dialogues that we can all, just the JKD dialogues, trying to move forward from that thing. And I'm surprised how often people are like, here's my chance to just purge my opinion or my expertise on the subject. And that's not engaging in any kind of conversation at all. So I think the less we can focus on our, like the JKD should be about discovering your individuality, right? Discovering yourself authentically and moving forward from that place. But as a community, JKD doesn't need to be, then we're going, and so I'm going to shove that in everyone's face and make you know what time it is,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
I don't think that that's productive.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've said it many, many times. The importance of individuality is probably one of the most underappreciated or even underscored aspects of Jeet Kune Do. You know, and so when you get that, then you're like, shoot, I got to be open-minded as hell, because I got to make room in my mind for everybody out there. But see, but this is the thing, right? I think a lot of people are afraid to do that. But what they don't know is that if you do start doing that, very, very quickly, you get to see who's a moron and who is not so much
That's right.
a moron.
That's right. And I think, you know, like for me, I try to maintain a healthy hunger for being wrong, right? I mean, both of you gentlemen have said in your own words, like, are you trying something and it's not working, or keep trying it until you can understand it better? Or, you know, we're going to get together and spar. We're going to try a thing out or whatever. You know, this fear over being wrong is such a hindrance, and the willingness to be wrong, the celebration of getting it wrong because of what that's going to give you, that's the recipe towards that self-awareness, right? Failing upward. I said this the last time that we talked. That's such a distinctly important thing. And if we're not willing to do that as individuals, and we're not willing to do that as a community, then the best we're ever going to be is where we're at right now, period. right? We can't get any better than where we are. And that might be fine for, on a person-to-person level. But to the point of how do we go forward from here, how does this thing persist in a positive direction? Being willing not just to put down your sword, but to I've learned about my individuality, you've learned about yours. Let's not try to impress our individuality upon each other, but let's learn from and celebrate whatever those differences are. I mean, it's how this whole thing's supposed to work.
Yeah. Cass Magda recently said to me that growth comes from doing the things with which you're unfamiliar or even uncomfortable.
Right.
Growth doesn't come from doing the same thing over and over again. You know what I mean? So that's what Russell was talking about, right? Trying out new things, learning something new, right? And then seeing if you can make it work. So
I think at your event in March, we all just hold hands and sing "We Are the World," and we'll be.
Hey, listen, man. Let me tell you, so by this time next week, everything should be confirmed, and then I'm just going to start inviting the entire world, right, to come to Miami, March 8th and 9th. I'm just going to start talking about it every week from now until then, right?
I'm trying to segue your plug there. So.
Yeah, and I definitely, I'm sure I've said this in public before, but I include Q&A as part of the training time. Inasano doesn't do that. Inasano seminars, you end at 5 p.m. and then he's got to get a plane at 7:30. So then he's like, well, are there any questions I can answer, in 2 minutes? Because we got to run to the airport. I don't play that, right? No, we will stop at 4:15, and now we got 45 minutes of Q&A, right? Because you know what? If the seminar costs you $200, you should pay $200 to sit and listen to Dan and Asano anyhow. Right? So, anyhow. Okay, so famous last words, and then let's. I'm gonna go have lunch. Because y'all made me come on at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I have not even had breakfast coffee.
Sorry.
I know. No, it's my pleasure. All right, famous last words. Anything, whatever comes to mind.
I think if everyone went to each other's seminars, I think there'd be a lot more respect between turkeys. Everyone just went to everyone's seminars, the original concept, whatever. I think when you talk in person, I think there would be definitely more build of camaraderie will build up.
Yeah.
And it'd probably be less stuff said on the internet then, because there'd be a bit more respect between everybody.
Yeah.
And then they get shut. The people who tried arguments will get shut down quicker by anybody, both groups, because they're by physically being there and training together. Go, they do know this. They can do. It's like the respect to be gained, and then hopefully that would nullify some of the people, the trolls on the website. Right?
Russell.
No, nothing. No. Just
pass.
Yeah, pass. You guys you guys are just too smart. Like I feel like I've just been riding along this entire time, which is a great ride, by the way. But I think a lot of the problems would go away if we were just focusing on our own training and finding out how we could be well-rounded and proficient fighters, right? Whichever way you cut it, Jeet Kune Do is about fighting, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual, mental. You're trying to fight whatever battle it is you're fighting, and you'll find out what works very quickly in the heat of the battle, right? So if you're focusing on training and just focusing on being well-rounded and understanding how your body reacts in certain situations, we'll find a lot more of the common ground than not. And that said, test yourself. Go have a friendly spar, right? There's nothing wrong with that. So after Sifu Dwight's what were you calling it? Titans of Jeet Kune Do or something? After that event, Whatever
Titans of JKD.
Yes.
Yeah.
So after that event, we got to do the I Love Jeet Kune Do super seminar, and you got to get everyone together. And after everyone's done teaching, those who'd like to spar, friendly, and I do mean friendly. It's not a joke. You go out there and you know what you do. It's you just have fun, and then you find out. Oh heck yeah! You got to fight on the lay tie and everything.
Sorry.
The final two, you got to have the bowed one, and then no, don't do that, or do it. I don't care. It's your event, right?
No. I mean, because Cass and I have started talking about the format, right, of the entire thing. So that's an idea. We'll see. I mean, they're my seniors, so I don't presume to be able to say to them, well, it's my seminar, so you will do this and this. That ain't happening. Right? It's my seminar. It's like, well, just come and do whatever you want. All right, but we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Just come in with an open mind. Everything will be okay.
Yeah. Right. Okay, gentlemen, I really appreciate your taking the time to hang out with me. Spirited conversation, exactly what I expected. And I hope people get something out of it. I certainly, like Kurt said earlier, I got some ideas for stuff. And I want to say this, my JKD big brother, Michael Marcellus Brown, I read because he just became a moderator over on JKD Talk, right? So I read some of what he put out there, and I thought, you know what? I'm gonna take a little bit of his approach, right? I'm not interested in banning anybody, but I think I will start telling people this post is not going to stay up because it's not moving the art forward. I think that's going to be my position. This post doesn't move the art forward, delete and just be done. Right. We'll see how it goes. It's an ongoing process, ongoing learning process. So once again, thank you all very much. I really, really appreciate it. Right. And you can bet we'll do it again.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. You guys have a good one.
Good to see everyone. Thank you so much.
All righty.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. So now let's do all of this. Okay. All right. Nice one. Thanks to Kurt Cornwell. Kurt, what do you call that? Wheel. Anyhow, Kurt Cornwell, Terry Valler, and Russell Dulay. Really appreciate those guys spending time. So this was episode 282. You guys know the deal. I'll go through the comments, see if there's anything I need to reply to. I'll ask those guys to do the same thing. That's it for today. Feel free, share, like, comment, ask questions. Follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods and on Instagram at Dwight D. Woods. At paypal.me/UnifiedMA Miami. PayPal.me/UnifiedMA Miami is the Jeet Kune Do Journey Volume 1. Raw but edited version, of course, right? Okay. You can support the show here on the YouTube channel by clicking the join button, and then you'll see the different levels of membership that we have. PayPal, not paypal.me, YouTube, just click the join button. And then last but not least, you can support the show by making a purchase over on jkdrebel.com. Click on the Rebel Gear link, and that's where you see stuff like this. The 4 Tenets of Jeet Kune Do coffee mug, also available in garment form, and these kinds of garments also available in beverage form. Right? But of course, like I said before, best thing you can do, share the video, spread the word about the Jeet Kune Do dialogues. All right. Next Friday, I have to talk to my intended JKD dialogue partner, and so I'll let you guys know during the week. Right. So until the next episode, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel, signing off. You guys be safe. Have a great weekend. Talk soon.